Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily. A state commission will be created to investigate all cases of child sexual abuse. The Polish Prime Minister, Mateusz Morawiecki, invited the opposition to contribute to the work of the commission. The opposition has, in turn, called for the establishment of an investigative committee that would limit itself to examining child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church.
Zdecydowaliśmy o powołaniu takiej państwowej komisji, żeby też uniknąć wszelkich.
We have decided to create a government commission in order to avoid any possibility of cover-ups, because I agree with those who have doubts, those who have their reflections in their closed groups, that acting within those smaller groups would be incorrect. That's why we have changed those specific regulations in the Criminal Penal Code, which now make keeping silent about the sexual abuse of a child a criminal offence. There will be no more tolerance for those looking the other way. The reporting of the sexual abuse of children is mandatory, and remaining silent about it is a criminal offence. Silence is wrong. Silence is bad for a normal functioning society. Any cover-up or neglecting to inform the authorities is a crime from now on. Such a government commission might be very helpful in discovering any cases of the above. I would like to specifically stress the fact that we want to invite members of the opposition to take part in this commission. We would like the future commission to be open to everyone. We want it to represent the full spectrum of our society. At the same time, we want the Commission to be a practical body which does not water down the issue, which quickly tackles the problem in its real dimension. We want the Commission to find deficiencies and weak points in the actual systems where we have the child sexual abuse cases.
Pozwoliła zajmować się tym tematem, żeby ona w szybki sposób zidentyfikowała.
The Court of Appeals in Paris has decided that doctors will continue to artificially feed 42-year-old Vincent Lambert, who has been in a coma for 11 years. The case triggered a social debate on euthanasia in France.
Vincent Lambert suffered a motorcycle accident 11 years ago, which resulted in him becoming a quadriplegic. Lambert does not respond when spoken to, and he is also artificially fed and hydrated. His wife opposes to keeping him on life support. However, yesterday, the Court of Appeals in Paris ruled that doctors must feed Lambert as requested by the patient's parents. The French justice system has thus far not complied with the patient's parents' claims, arguing and adopting the opinion of doctors. That was until yesterday evening when the French Court of Appeals in Paris issued a decision to maintain the patient's life functions for the duration of 6 months. For years, Lambert's wife has been trying to take her husband off of artificial sustenance. The first decision was made by the court in 2013, but thanks to a legal battle waged by Vincent's parents, the man is still alive. At the beginning of May this year, doctors announced that they had begun the procedure of abandoning the artificial nutrition for the patient, after which Lambert's parents petitioned the European Court of Human Rights and the President of France, Emmanuel Macron. Both the tribunal and the French president decided not to get involved in the case. This matter is being considered on several levels. On one hand, the question arises about the legal status of the patient. Are we dealing with a disabled person who at this stage is unable to express his will, or instead a person in the so-called last stages of his life? Another issue that has arisen is the question of who can make decisions about the patient and who is the closest person from a legal point of view. Is it the wife or the parents? The Vincent Lambert case is causing a big social uproar not just in France. After the court's verdict, protectors of human life did not hide their joy.
Ronald Lauder, the president of the World Jewish Congress, has criticised Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki for his statement regarding the possibility of Jewish financial claims being made against Poland. The head of the Polish government stated during the Law and Justice Party convention that Poland paying for reparations regarding the Second World War would be Hitler's posthumous victory. Today, Morawiecki responded to Lauder's accusations.
Successive Polish governments have steadfastly refused to recognize the material losses of Polish Jewry and have essentially treated their homes and other property as the spoils of war, and individual Poles and Polish institutions have profiteered from these assets for more than 7 decades. I hope that Prime Minister Morawiecki was misquoted and can provide an explanation. Otherwise, the sentiments underlying his words can only be characterized as reprehensible and must be thoroughly rejected. As a longtime friend of Poland and the Polish people, I call upon Prime Minister Morawiecki to either deny or retract this deeply offensive and utterly incomprehensible statement.
Zdaje się, że Światowy Kongres Żydów
It appears that the World Jewish Congress and others who criticize my statement have taken part of a sentence out of context, and if they hadn't done that, they wouldn't have judged it so harshly, since no reasonable person would want to mistake the executioner with the victim. There was nothing wrong with my statement as a whole.
Chyba nikt dobry, nikt rozsądny.
Italian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Interior Matteo Salvini is threatening to take local authorities in Sicily to court over their decision to allow 45 African migrants to disembark on the island of Lampedusa. The decision went against the direct orders of Salvini and legislation adopted last year. The legislation bans NGO vessels from dropping off irregular migrants at Italian ports.
The 45 African migrants were picked up from the Libyan coast by the German NGO vessel Sea-Watch 3. They were later transferred to Lampedusa by Italian Coast Guard and naval vessels after the mayor of Agrigento in Sicily impounded the Sea-Watch 3 vessel for an alleged breach of Italy's immigration law and ordered the migrants to be disembarked. Salvini reacted with fury and quickly took to Facebook to declare that he'll take action against anyone who illegally facilitates the arrival of undocumented migrants to Italy.
C'è questa nave, sta Sea-Watch.
There is this boat, this Sea-Watch, a German NGO ship with a Dutch flag that has already been stopped once because it wasn't respecting the laws of the finance police and the port authorities. It arrives at Lampedusa. I say they cannot disembark. They cannot disembark. I say if we're in a state where we have laws, rules, they cannot disembark. I do not give permission. If these migrants have disembarked, someone needs to give an explanation.
Io non do nessuna autorizzazione.
Since taking office last June, Salvini has effectively closed ports to migrants picked up in the Mediterranean Sea, helping cut new arrivals to around 1,100 so far in 2019, down some 90% from 2018 and 98% in the same period in 2017.
Thank you very much for joining us here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily Weather. It's followed by the business, history, culture and the travel.
Good evening, I'm Paulina Odderstein and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Tonight, temperature-wise, it will be from 8 degrees around Lublin, 9 degrees will be seen in Łódź, and the maximum of 14 degrees in Lower Silesia around Wrocław, also around Zielona Góra, Poznań and Szczecin. Some showers will be appearing also around Wrocław. Now let's check the forecast for tomorrow. So tomorrow quite cloudy as we can see, and also thunderstorms will be appearing around the capital of Poland, Warsaw, also in Bydgoszcz, Poznań, Olsztyn and Gdańsk. The coolest area will be Rzeszów with 15 degrees, 17 degrees around Lublin, and the maximum temperature tomorrow will be 25 degrees in Zielona Góra. This is all for now. Join us again for Poland Daily Business. Good night.
Poland Daily Business Edition, tonight from Katowice, European Economical Congress. And our topic right now is unusual because we'll talk a little bit about the perspective of Ethiopia. Our guest is Arya Kidane from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Ethiopia. So welcome to Poland, welcome to this show.
Thank you very much.
Let us say a few words about the modern day Ethiopia, because few people realize the changes that happened over the last 30 years in your country.
Well, thank you very much for giving me this chance. Ethiopia is one of the oldest nations in the world. Currently, Ethiopia has more than 100 million population, the second most populous country after Nigeria in Africa. it's one of the best economic performance in the world. For the last 15 years, Ethiopian economic growth is a double-digit economic growth. And recently, we have a new prime minister in the government. It's almost 1 year with open economy working, attracting more investments, not only in China, India, Turkey, but also big European companies and American companies are investing in Ethiopia.
The idea of the economical development is similar to the India or China, the idea that your country is pursuing?
No, it's similar, of course, to some Asian countries like South Korean model, but also its own economic development model, which have similarities not only with the East, but also the West. We are working both with West and East countries. And,
if you are asking to name the strong points of European economy, of the Ethiopian economy, what it will be?
Well, the natural resource, of course, the cheap or labor force, easily trained labor force, and big land size, proximity to the Gulf countries and Europe also, but especially the labor force is one of its comparative advantage. Yeah.
To start the negotiations, you came to Poland to find out the partnership, to talk with government, but also with businesses regarding the possible mutual beneficiary trade. So, what you found interesting in Poland?
Well, our government is now looking to establish open relation with Eastern and Central European countries, and in Europe alone we have 15 diplomatic missions, and we are thinking of opening diplomatic representation in some of the Central European countries, and Poland is one of our attentions and destinations. So we want more business investments from Poland, and we want also to export our items, export products to this part of the world. We know the Polish people buy our products from other European countries, including Germany and Netherlands. So we want to have direct transaction with the Polish people. And now we believe that the Polish economy is in a good shape, growing, and the middle income is growing. And we want more tourists from Poland tourists to come and visit Ethiopia. And
so you would like to sell more goods directly from Ethiopia to Poland, and also visit or host more tourists from our country to your country. Are there any? Can we tell about which specific products are Ethiopian products are being sold in Poland through the Austrian or German businesses?
Yes, mostly our coffee. The coffee, Ethiopia is well known. We believe that's the birthplace of coffee, and we also we know that our products, the pulses, oil seeds, and also the horticultural products, including our flowers, are coming from the Netherlands, and we believe that would be one of the. And it's not only the export. We want also some products from Poland. We want to buy. I mean, so we believe that there are some products which might be good for our economic development, the capital goods. Say for the construction, for agricultural mechanization
equipment.
Equipment
We had
also.
this Ursus
factory
factory that
tractors.
builds the tractors in the Ethiopia for Ethiopian market.
Yes.
So that's a very positive example, actually, and unexpectedly good relation with Ethiopia, and that's something that is this is still ongoing. Yes, so the Ethiopian farmers are buying the Polish tractors from the factory.
Yes.
Good.
So when we want to diversify, this is we have now four delegation members. One is from Ethiopian Investment Commission, and the other one is from the Industry Development Corporation, and we have also one from the private sector. I am leading the delegation as in charge of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Business Diplomacy Directorate.
So thank you very much for visiting our modest booth at the European Economical Congress here in Katowice.
Thank you.
Mr. Araya Kidane from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia was our guest, and that was it for this part of Poland Daily Business.
Hello, I'm Paulina Odderstein and welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. Tomorrow in Poland we are expecting the minimum temperature of 15 around Rzeszów, 17 degrees will be seen in Lublin, and the maximum of 25 around Zielona Góra. Quite rainy tomorrow in the northern parts of the country, also in central Poland as well as around Bydgoszcz and Poznań. The rest of the country should remain dry. Now let's see the forecast in Europe for tomorrow. So tomorrow in Europe, very warm in Stockholm, up to 24 degrees with full sun. 29 degrees will be seen in Madrid, 25 in Lisbon, and up to 27 in the Athens. The coolest area will be Dublin and Berlin with 17 degrees. This is all for tonight. I'm wishing you a beautiful evening. Thank you.
Witamy Państwa.
Welcome to the first episode of Republika Sztuki. I'm Marcin Bąk.
Janusz Janowski. O czym będziemy rozmawiać?
What will we be talking about? Obviously about art in its highest form. Am I right?
Mam rację?
I certainly hope so.
Janusz Janowski będzie naszym przewodnikiem.
Janusz Janowski will be our guide on this journey. He's a painter, an artist, also a musician, and let me add, the president of the Association of Polish Artists and Designers. Did I miss anything in terms of your titles?
Nie pominąłem niczego w tytułach.
No, but I can also say that I have a PhD in humanities, so maybe this will help me to guide our viewers on this road through art.
Przeprowadzaniu wszystkich przez drogę. Krążymy cały czas wokół tej antycznej Grecji i nie bez przyczyny, bo w końcu...
We are circling around ancient Greece all the time, which is no surprise since the ancient Greeks set the basic standards of art, of perceiving art, and we mentioned the concept of aesthetics, which the Greeks thought to be part of science. Is aesthetics today a branch of knowledge still, or is it a notion disconnected from reality?
Oderwane trochę od rzeczywistości pojęcie.
W sensie ścisłym estetyka pojawia się znacznie później.
Aesthetics as a branch of knowledge actually came sometime later, deriving from the philosophy of Immanuel Kant, so from the idealistic trend. We need to keep in mind that aesthetic isn't much more than bringing visual aspects to purely decorative contemplations, widely understood. So it's not only about the geometrical and other elements that we commonly call decor, but also about the naturalistic elements, connected with nature, but still serving decorative purposes. It was at that time that beauty became a purely aesthetic element, therefore it became one of the values that characterizes art. Before that, since the ancient Greece times until rationalist philosophy came about, along with aesthetics in the 18th century, beauty was synonymous with any being, poetically speaking. Beauty was an element of form of any item that is real. Therefore, it had a slightly different characteristic. As such, attributing beauty to a Greek statue was relating more to understanding the world through a category of being rather than a purely aesthetic sensation, though undoubtedly Clearly, that was also present in the experience of beauty. Much like each one of us can be awed when looking at beautiful clouds or a tree, for instance. A tree is a being and can amaze us. It has this charm to it. The beauty of being has this allure which directs us to a certain view, and to understanding this being, this is what Greeks understood beauty. Hence, in the 18th century, aesthetics, beauty was devolved of it. It became a pictographic element, a graphic element which organizes a plane. It is a part of that plane. That is why aesthetic beauty was no longer the most important value in art, but the feeling of grandeur.
Dla Kanta najważniejszą wartością w sztuce nie było już piękno estetyczne, a na przykład uczucie wzniosłości.
Mówimy tutaj w tym naszym pierwszym odcinku o takich...
In this episode, we are speaking about the basic artistic terms. We should also think about what we will show our viewers in subsequent episodes. The art that we want to focus in our program is, first and foremost, fine arts, paintings, drawings, sculptures. However, it is difficult to speak about these art forms without mentioning their connection to other forms. I think those connections will be spoken about in the coming episodes.
Myślę, że te powiązania także się pojawią w naszych odcinkach.
Myślę, że tak, oczywiście, choć nie jest tak, żeby one...
Yes, certainly, although other forms of art do not determine fine arts, we must realize that the separation of art mainly occurred through those malleable artistic forms. For instance, architecture, since the Greek times, is viewed as a facet of art. Meanwhile, architecture is a utilitarian or sacral element. On the other hand, art does not have a utilitarian function.
I od czasów greckich właściwie nie ma funkcji użytkowej.
Tak jakbyś chciał widzieć tą sztukę, a właściwie sztuki plastyczne, jako mocno wyizolowane.
What I understand is that you see the fine arts as being very remote from real life and from the more utilitarian art forms. I would not necessarily agree with that. Even if we look at very old images from the Knossos Palace in Crete, we can see images of dances. We can go even further back and think of the images of dances in Egypt. This is where two art forms intertwine. Dance was already perceived as something beautiful, and the artist tried to capture and immortalize this moment. In my view, these connections to other art forms were always present. Naturally, that is not what I had in mind. That link is natural. Look at the fact that the artists were inspired by elements of reality, being, the dancer in this case. That image provoked thought, elation, emotions, and as such we have to agree that art is closely linked to real life. It is not detached from reality. In my view, today's art is being detached from reality and life itself too often, creating a whole different category of experiencing the world out of it, so distinct that it does not relate to the real life in any way.
Tak odrębną, że właściwie w żaden sposób nie przystającą do rzeczywistości.
Moje przywołane na samym początku doświadczenie.
Just like the example I mentioned before with splashing a bucket of paint on a canvas, which now is considered high art, that is derived from very deep internal feelings. That art is often later sold for huge amounts of money. Meanwhile, for the people who back in the day were trying to describe reality using the language of art, it would be a little weird to try and sell a painting that was created as a result of paint splashing.
Sprzedawać ten obraz w postaci chluśnięcia wiadrem jako sztuka.
No absolutnie to zupełnie byłoby niezrozumiałe.
Oh, it would be absolutely incomprehensible. It would certainly bring a dismissive smile to their faces.
I lekceważenie, absolutnie.
My sobie tutaj tak teoretyzujemy, rozmawiamy o jakichś, wydawać by się mogło, oderwanych od rzeczywistości sprawach.
We are just theorizing here, talking about issues seemingly detached from reality. Meanwhile, we are trying to introduce our viewers to issues crucial to everyday life, also political life. After all, the kind of culture we live in, the way this culture was developing and is currently being destroyed corresponds directly to political choices, what we see on TV and read in the newspapers.
Tak zwane autorytety w wielu dziedzinach.
Oczywiście. I tu znowu musimy sięgnąć do Greków i powtórzyć, że nie realizował działań w obszarze...
Yes, and here we should circle back to the Greeks once again. Art stems from deliberate action, which is an element of self-improvement. It is not created for art's sake. Not a single person acts without purpose. Purposeless action is a part of a game, play. Any other action, including the creation of art, is deliberate, and as such it is geared towards human development. This is what artists of today are lacking, creating objects of situation called art, which are made without a purpose but for the sake of art itself, is detached from reality and humanity in a sense, and from that need for self-improvement. Suddenly, the function of this kind of art is revealed as anti-human.
Sztuki właściwie ujawnia się jako antyludzka.
Sądziłem, że nie będziemy zbyt często mieszać tematu polityki i sztuki, ale...
I thought we would not mix art with politics too often, yet it seems they are not completely separate. I would like to mention a historical figure which has a dark legend in humanity's history, but it is impossible not to mention that person when speaking about art, especially modern art. I am talking about Karl Marx, a person who had a strong, albeit arguably negative influence on modern history. In his works, Marx devoted a lot of time to art. He had a vision of a foundation and a superstructure. In other words, a basis created upon interpersonal relationships, economic production and division of goods needs to be established before anything else, such as art, can be created. Was he right or was he mistaken? Is the need for art remote from the, colloquially speaking, need for filling your gut?
Czy potrzeba tworzenia sztuki jest niezależna od tego napełniania brzucha, nazwijmy to tak bardzo kolokwialnie?
Na pewno ujęcie Marksa...
Marx's vision in relation to art was reductionist at best. It is a very one-dimensional view and puts too much stress on particular elements. The experience and desire for art is not that dependent on the providing of basic needs for existence. This is a wrong assumption and certainly does not correspond to the general experience of an artist. We forget about the fact that artists often live in extreme poverty in order to create their art. They disregard the need for insurance of their livelihood, they risk losing the resources needed for life in order to create. Therefore, what Marx was talking about is an example of an idealistic way of looking at life in a dogmatic, theoretical way, not an insightful recognition of reality. We absolutely cannot agree with that.
Rozpoznaniem tej rzeczywistości. I oczywiście tu zgodzić się z tym nie możemy.
A skoro już żeśmy Marksa tutaj przywołali...
Since we mentioned Karl Marx, the question that is on my mind and certainly on the minds of many of our viewers, how is that possible that over the last century art has taken such a leftist turn? Why is it that so many painters, graphic designers have committed themselves politically to left-wing movements, which is expressed in their art?
Daje temu wyraz. Sztuka jest silnie lewicowa.
Dlatego, że politycy o tej charakterystyce...
That is because left-wing politicians and theoreticians understand that the creative aspect of art and an important element of modernity seen in art is a crafty tool in creating new behaviors, expressions. Therefore, it is a perfect tool to use.
Nadaje się doskonale do tego, żeby się nią posłużyć.
Chciałoby się powiedzieć...
You could say that art is the servant of the revolution.
Dokładnie tak. I zresztą widzimy to także w przypadku...
Yes, precisely. We can also see that in the case of Russian constructivism, that was how it was used. What is interesting is that when the politicians achieved their goal of social transformation, they knocked those established artists down.
Wzniecenia rewolucji dla jej uwiarygodnienia.
Jak to się mówiło. Proszę Państwa.
Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is coming to an end. We have established the framework in which we will try to operate in order to show you what art is, debunking some myths, providing some facts.
Trochę mitów, pokazać trochę faktów.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we will be talking to Mr. Arthur Gruniewski, a tour guide who receives hundreds of international guests every year who all yearn to learn more about Polish history. Together we will explore the locations he takes them on in Warsaw, Poland, and Central Eastern Europe. One of the very historically important places in Warsaw is the Jewish ghetto. And as a tour guide, I was wondering where would you take your guests to see, and what are the places inside the Jewish ghetto that can put things in a more historical context?
Amazing, important history site requires very important monuments and commemorations.
Yes.
So the first and the most important element is Polin Museum, which is the museum of 1,000 years history of Polish Jews, which was constructed in 2012. Officially, the main exhibition was opened in October 2014, and in 2016 it was given European Best Museum Award. And since that moment on, much more guests are coming to Warsaw.
Right.
And Warsaw becomes a perfect match with Krakow when it comes to sightseeing in Poland. The architecture of the museum is amazing. And it was not Daniel Libeskind who provided his plan for he didn't win the competition to design the museum, even though he designed Holocaust Museum in Berlin, even though he designed Freedom Tower and Ground Zero in New York, and even though he's a Polish Jew born in May of 1946 in Łódź, in a family that survived Holocaust. Then it was not his design that won the competition, but two gentlemen from Finland provided amazingly beautiful idea, the concept of the museum that corresponds with the rest of the area of the ghetto. So the entrance of the museum is in the shape of the Red Sea that was crossed with Moses from Egypt to Promised Lands. And there is an amazing facade, glass facade, on which there are Polish and Hebrew letters, P-O-L-I-N, P-O-L-I-N, Polin, Polin, Polin. So Poland in Hebrew, and there is a legend in here that Polin or Polan, here I stay, here I rest. First Jewish families coming to Poland were saying. Finally, after all these retaliations, repercussions, and inquisitions, I can come to a place where I can rest and stay. Polin. So right in front of the museum, there is this monument, extremely important monument, designed by Nathan Rapaport and Leon Suzin. The monument was erected on the 19th of April 1948, which was 5th anniversary of uprising in territory of Jewish ghetto. There are two monuments. The front facade, the front side, most important one, provided by Nathan Rapaport, presenting Mordechai Anielewicz, 23 years old leader of the uprising in the ghetto, and next to his left leg there is a man who already died, and then another man who's protecting a child, and then two teenagers on the left and right, 14 and 16 years old, and on the top a lady who protects her child from the flames of burning ghetto. So the interpretation of this monument is following. Doesn't matter if you are young or old, doesn't matter if you are a boy or a girl, doesn't matter if you have something to fight with or not, you fight for your nation, you fight for your dignity, and you fight for your honor. And this is where Willy Brandt, German Chancellor, personally came on 7th of December 1970. He kneeled, put flowers, apologized, and asked for forgiveness. So look at the level of importance of this place. That was the biggest Jewish ghetto in world's history, because that was the biggest Jewish agglomeration in Europe. The only uprising took place over there. There were one-day uprisings in Auschwitz, Treblinka, but uprising in territory of Jewish ghetto lasted for 27 days. And this is where Mordechai Anielewicz was leading the uprising. Just steps away, there is a hill made of ruins of Miła 18, when the leader of uprising was leading it, and then he committed a suicide by blowing everything up. So we have a monument over there.
The tragic history of the Polish Jews crammed into the Warsaw Ghetto by the German occupants is reflected in a number of monuments and sites still possible to visit today. Next up, we will talk to Mr. Gorniewski about places such as Umschlagsplatz and the famous bridge on Chłodna Street, connecting the small part of the ghetto with the main ghetto. So Miła 18 is right next to the monument of the uprising.
Exactly. This is where all the most important history things were happening. So that's why there are a lot of important commemorations. There is the station of the Umschlagplatz, so the railway station from where first Jewish families were transported to Treblinka. There is another painting on a wall where Marek Edelman provides a quotation. "It's easy to hate, but love requires effort and sacrifice." There are original elements of Jewish ghetto wall at Miła 18. There is a commemoration of the footbridge that was over Chłodna Street. Everything is marked very precisely on the pavement. Where were the steps? Where was the wall? Where were the buildings, the terraced house destroyed during World War II? What were their numbers? It's even marked with special lines on what level the footbridge was. So almost on every single step in territory of Jewish ghetto, there are commemorations connected with these extremely dark chapters in Polish history.
Right.
But there is another very important thing. When I went to Israel to visit my guests, to sightsee myself, I went to Yad Vashem Museum in Jerusalem, and the main section of the museum is called Warsaw Ghetto Field.
Right.
And on Warsaw Ghetto Field there are two monuments, and both of them are copies from Warsaw.
Okay.
So the two of them, Natan Rapaport, Heroes of Ghetto Uprising monument, and on the other side of the wall there is a monument, there is a sculpture carved in a wall of the marches of death of people who were transported from one concentration camp to another concentration camp, or people who were on the way to gas chambers. So that in the middle of it there is a rabbi or a Jewish man with a bird who holds Torah, so Jewish Bible, and he raises his right hand up asking the God why me and my nation are facing such fate. I kept the rules, he says, by holding Torah in his left hand, and this is the question that he raises when in front of him there is a lady impregnant who is entering the gas chambers, and behind him there is a 2-year-old girl. And the 2-year-old girl is the only one who looks back. Because when she was born in the ghetto, she didn't even see grass. And on the way to the gas chambers there were flowers or roses planted to make people feel comfortable.
Right.
So that's why she looks back, because that was the first time in her life when she saw a rose. And the material out of which the monument was constructed, the special material from Larvik in Norway, was personally ordered by Adolf Hitler, so to construct big Hitler sculpture in territory of destroyed ghetto. According to Paul Pabst Plan, Adolf Hitler city planner, after World War II, the city of Warsaw, so Warsaw Germanized, was supposed to include 50,000 of inhabitants of Aryan race on the other side of the river, and 150,000 of Polish people working for the Nazis as a cheap or free labor. In the central section of the Polish district, there was supposed to be flat square of a territory of the ghetto with Adolf Hitler monument. So the stone, the material changed in purpose. Now it's the monument of Heroes of Ghetto Uprising. Now it's a place where people from all around the world are coming so to commemorate and celebrate. And that's my amazing memory. Once I saw a group of teenagers from Israel in a circle, holding their arms, jumping and singing.
Right.
Like as if Polish national team won the World Cup. So I mean, like, why are you celebrating so much? I gently asked. Excuse me, why are you celebrating in here? I asked. And then one of the boys came to me and said, sir, it's a very good question you asked. We do celebrate in here because our nation survived.
As we have seen today, traveling is an integral part of learning history. Through the eyes of a tourist, given historical context by a guide, we were able to learn the events that shaped Poland and its culture. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
In the green and fragrant southern suburbs of Warsaw, on the old road to the town of Konstantin, lies the 17th century palace of Wilanów, home away from home for the storied Polish king Jan Sobieski. Just as in the past, citizens, travelers, and tourists journey to the outskirts of the capital, mimicking the behavior of Jan Sobieski himself, who often sought refuge in his palace. Yes, he was the hero of Vienna in 1683, the battle that prevented the Turkish invasion of Europe. This is one of the landmark occurrences in both Polish and European history. And this was the residence where Jan Sobieski came to reflect. This Latinate palace would be at home in Italy or France, perhaps particularly France, with its sculptured flower gardens, its invitingly relaxed facade, and its ornamental canal. Motifs paying homage to Roman and Greek myths adorn the facade of the palace itself, as well as the gardens. It's a pleasant place to relax and reflect. You can see why King Jan Sobieski had it built for this purpose, which it serves remarkably. Go there yourself when you're in Warsaw. You will not be disappointed, as these programs will show. This is the palace, not just of a king, but of a great king. In fact, Jan Sobieski is one of the seminal figures in European history, and this palace perfectly reflects the mind of that very special individual.
So here we are, folks, in the front of the Wilanów Palace. It's an exciting place. As we were saying in a previous episode, this was the hangout of Jan Sobieski III, and let's just say there was no more important king.
That's the guy.
Than he. And not only in Poland, he's one of the most important figures, I guess we could say, in European history, for a number of reasons. We'll get into more of that, won't we, Arthur?
Yes, of course.
What about this gate here, before we go in?
The gate tells a lot. Let's take a look at the top two sculptures of the gate. So on the left we can see Roman god of war, Mars himself, but take a look at his mustache. So we can see that the mustache reminds of King Sobieski mustache. So that's how the Roman god of war is compared to the King Sobieski himself. So who's on the other side of the gate? There's a Roman goddess of peace, Pax. And that's why she holds a palm leaf in her hand representing peace. So whenever the king was in war, he was fighting to bring prosperity and peace for the inhabitants of the country.
So
and that's
War
why
and Peace. It sounds
War
like,
and Peace.
It's a good title for a book.
Yeah, well, would you like to write
get busy.
one?
Yeah, I better get busy.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
let's do it.
We definitely need a book entitled War and Peace, I think, don't you?
There are two more sculptures.
Where are they?
Can you see? On the left and the right, there are two more sculptures.
The griffins?
No, of a dog and a bear. So these sculptures were added later in
griffin?
19th century by the dignitary nobility gentleman Mr. Potocki, who sculptured these two things in here. So to compare the king to a dog that represents devotion to his country.
Because dogs are known for their devotion, man's best friend.
Exactly. Okay. So he was a nation's best friend and also a bird that represents strength.
Strength.
So these sculptures were added about 150 years
after the king himself died, so still in king's
When did he
days.
die? When did he die?
So these are late 1600s.
Okay, so late 1600s.
The end of 17th century.
The end of the 17th century, and Sobieski died then like 1690 or something, right?
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
And then 1800s, these two more sculptures were added. This is when this became the first Polish museum, and this is when so many people come today, so to call it Polish Versailles.
Oh, this is another one because the Brunitsky Palace was a little Versailles as well.
No, this is the bigger one.
This is bigger?
Yeah.
This is bigger and better? I thought Brunitsky Palace was pretty big too.
Okay, now you know better than you knew before.
Good Lord, but I was believing the local propaganda.
No, come on.
Folks, okay. They're
It's
both like Versailles,
It's
right?
like when you travel
Let's
in
not
Italy.
get into a fight about
It's
it.
like when you travel in Italy, in every single city, they will tell you they have the best pizza. So we have so many little Versailles in Poland, and let's take a look at the best one.
This is you think, the prime example.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go. We're going inside now. Stay with us, and we're going to be joined by our hula hoop enthusiast, Miho from Tokyo.
There's his mustache. Can you see?
This is Peace, and that's Mars, yeah.
And can you see his mustache?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so there he
Yeah,
is.
I see it. Okay, so we're inside now with Arthur, and we're joined by our Japanese friend, Miho Sano, who is a hula hoop enthusiast. And that's always important when you're touring an important palace. What are we going to see? Let's just go for a walk.
Let's take a look at these sculptures outside the palace. They are really interesting, and they tell the history of this place and of what people were thinking about the king and his queen as well, because that was an amazing relationship. Every single Polish man knows King Sobieski because of his battles, because of his warrior attitude and his victories. But every single Polish lady recognizes King Sobieski as a great man devoted to his life and his family. So let's take a look at both. What kind of guy he was in general.
Okay, so we're going down there. All right, good.